Okay, now I had this idea while I was at work. I tried doing a review of the Care Bears, the second Care Bears movie, for a website, and it was very bad. Not the film, the review. So, for my own enjoyment and amusement, I'm going to review a god-awful film because I like to punish myself. I really don't like myself. I hate myself so much, I'm going to watch this film. That's actually not true. I don't actually hate myself that much. But I do hate this film. And it's called Daydream Believers. Now with a name like that, what do you think it is? It's a biography. Or biopic. Whatever the hell they're called, it's about the monkeys and how they came together. Now I'm going to sort of watch it and say things about it while I'm watching it. Of course I can't record and watch it at the same time because I don't have enough film. So I'm just going to make certain comments. But the first comments I'm going to make are about the actual monkeys themselves. So let me just have a look and I'll get back to you on that. Now, there's something that occurs to me actually about their looks. You see, when you watch the first series of the monkeys and compare it to the second season, their look changes dramatically in many ways, clothes-wise and hair-wise. And with this film, it's almost as if they can't be asked to change their image throughout to show you that, you know, this is taking place over like a space of about 3 years and their image does change. So we'll just kind of take them as the image people probably remember them as and just have them look like that throughout the whole film. I mean, Peter didn't actually change much at all. His hair pretty much stayed the same and everything else, apart from, of course, his clothes. And Mike Nesbitt, in the first season, he had it was kind of shorter. It was a lot shorter and neater in many ways. And in the second season, it got kind of longer. And in this film, the guy who's playing him, his hair is like Mike's would have been in the second season. But the worst of all, and he is the guy coming up next, is the guy playing Mickey. Now, there is so many things wrong about this guy, I don't even know where to start. But I might as well start with the hair. For starters, he starts off with curly hair. Now, a lot of people may remember, I don't know, that Mickey Dolenz did have curly hair in the later seasons. In the later seasons, not at the beginning of the series. In the beginning, it was straight. And they didn't bother with that in the film. They just decided, well, most people remember him like that, so we'll just sort of have him look like that throughout the whole thing and sort of forget that that's not how he started out looking, because we're lazy. And that bothers me. But not as much as his physique. Now, Mickey Dolenz was a scrawny bugger. He was so scrawny, in fact, that he didn't get sent out to Vietnam because of it. And this guy is big, broad, not fat, but in the broad sense. He certainly could not be described as scrawny, which is, again, just wrong. Because he looks nothing like Mickey Dolenz, at all. Don't even get me started on Davy Jones. For starters, the hair is, again, as I say, very much like Davy Jones had it at the very end of the first season. He actually used to have it a lot shorter than this guy's was, but that's kind of immaterial compared to his accent. He's supposed to be from Manchester, but I'm British, and I know for a fact this does not sound very Manchester-y. So they've got his accent wrong, they've got his hair wrong, and okay, I'm not really a Davy Jones fan, so I don't actually find Davy Jones that cute. But I certainly recognise, compared to the others, that he was supposed to be the cute one. But this guy, there is just something unattractive about him that I can't quite place. But I certainly can't understand why they chose him. And also, don't get me started on his dancing. Of course, don't get me started on Davy Jones's dancing either. So, let's carry on. Now, the film starts with basically the present of two people talking about starting a TV show that is based around a band who also releases music. A concept which is quite popular these days. However, they ask whether it had ever been done before, and then you skip to the 60s, where of course it had been done for the first time. Now this is where you're introduced to a guy called Vaughn, and unfortunately, another thing they got wrong was the show was created by Bob Schneider and Rob Rafelson. Or Bob Rafelson. I actually get their names wrong, and that's bad, because I'm a big Monkees fan. But still, two guys who are sort of similar in the way that their attitude towards the program. And Yet this one decides to introduce a very liberal, out there kind of guy and very conservative, button down kind of guy who's arguing against, well, we can't have this program too wild. And he's like, the other one's like, no, we've got to have it wild. We can have boys who can be themselves and out there and hip and young and that doesn't really fit. I suppose the suit guy is supposed to represent the type of people that the Rob and Bob had to face when they were trying to come up with the show. Anyway, so they're looking for these guys, and of course all the monkeys come and audition. And you do get to see bits of their audition. The bit that you get to see of Mickey Dolenz is him going in there and moving. Actually, no, he takes a glass, because the guy's playing with plastic cups, takes one, smashes them all and say checkmate. I've never actually seen the audition of Mickey Dolenz, but I know for a fact that the guy was actually playing with Coke cans, and he actually only moved one slightly and said checkmate. So I'm thinking, okay, so you did the basic thing, and I should be petty, but I'm a big Mickey Dolenz fan, so of course I'm going to get petty. So in a little montage type thing, they find who they want, and then decide to get the boys together, where they go to a diner and have a food fight. Again, I don't know if this is actually true, but it's actually quite funny, and it gives you a rough idea of what kind of relationship they're gonna have. They also try to recreate some of the comedy of the show by having it sped up a little bit and having funny sound effects while they're all being dressed by the stylists. Unfortunately, for the monkeys it kind of worked, I suppose, because the whole thing was supposed to be kind of cartoony and it was kind of ridiculous anyway. But in a film that also that's more sort of serious and with comedy, it doesn't really look right for the time, you know, for a film that was, I think, made in 2000. It just looks retro, but kind of in a bad way. So you have scenes with Mickey and Peter getting to know each other and comparing the different lives they've had. Peter, who lived in a village and moved around a lot and felt kind of, I know, unexcited, and Mickey Dolenz, who stayed in the same place and wish he had moved around a lot and wanting to build things and travel. That all seemed very true. I'm not going to dispute anything that either one of them actually said based on what I've read, because I've actually read Mickey Dolenz's autobiography. However, I will say that this guy, when he's being hyperactive and trying to be funny, he's not funny. I'm going to say this so many times throughout this. This guy is not funny. Some people might not find Mickey Dolenz funny. I don't care. I find him amusing. I find this guy irritating. Not funny. Scene in the recording studio where they discover, to their horror, they're then not allowed to play the instruments on their own music. They're only supposed to do the vocals. And Davy Jones happens to predict quite accurately that it's only going to be for the first couple. In other words, first couple of albums. Which it is. Wow, what a great prophecy there. But it turns out that the monkeys don't want to record it, so they mess around, which they do that they actually did back then. And Mickey Dolenz decides to pour some water over Don Kirshner's head, which actually happened, although I heard it was Coke. I swear they've exchanged everything in this from Coke to water, which may have had something to do with they weren't allowed to use Coca-Cola in there.
You don't happen to be the monkeys, do you, old chaps?
Okay, it's bad enough that they're recreating certain things that happened. Now they're actually recreating parts of the actual programs. When you've watched the episodes enough times, you kind of get used to the way they look. And you kind of accept that that's the way they are. When you see people try to recreate them in a different decade that's supposed to be set in the 60s, and you speed it up, and you don't actually recreate it exactly, you kind of mess around with it and do certain things recreating it, it's, what's the word? Not funny! Also, just lame and just wrong. And I know that if you were going to do any kind of film that was supposed to show what these, you know, recreating anything, it was going to be bad. But this just somehow is worse. I swear there must be some way that they could have recreated these moments from their episodes in a way that wasn't so bad. Let's face it, that's never true. But anyway, so that's what they do. And you also find out that the Monkeys pilot wasn't very good at all. In fact, it was a flop. It was actually the lowest rated pilot in history. Of course, considering this was the 60s, that didn't really have much to live up to. Although I have a feeling it still is the worst pilot, even now. But wait, they will come up with a way of making it successful.